Hey marketing leader, today I'd like to talk to you about branding. Now, I know we are not a branding agency. There's nothing about branding as much on our YouTube channel and you won't find it on our blog and other publications. However, being a web design agency, we directly derive ideas and inspirations for website from brand guidelines. In other words, the quality of brand guidelines that our clients provide to us, well, they impact the quality of a website that we can produce to an extent, of course. From my experience, companies tend to reach out for service from a company like ourselves a bit too soon. The case is that they think branding is just logo, branding is maybe a bit of color palette. It's not really it. Branding is so much more, and you should, for the sake of your business well-being and clarity of your message and other future endeavors, you should get branding nailed down as soon as possible. And once you get it done, only then you can start thinking about promoting your business, building a new website that actually converts that traffic and attracts attention, and sending out those newsletters and actually promoting your brand awareness. So I think some businesses have it the other way around. I understand the rush to just get out of the doors and shout about the business. But at some point, you really have to encapsulate your business as if it was a person. What are the traits? How does it sound? What does it look like? All those questions, they need to be written down for everyone in the company to memorize and use going forward. That's why in this video, I want to go through key sections of a brand guideline that I think are absolutely necessary before you can start building a website. I think that a good brand guideline document should start with brand identity and brand narrative. Just a high-level overview what your brand is really about. Is it more vibrant? Is it a bit more moody? Is it more clear or a bit more simplistic? Like, what is the vibe that the brand gives out? That kind of identity. If you just cross them on the street, what's the first impression you would get from your business? That's brand identity. And then narrative, it's really just a summary, 2-3 points that say what drives that business. Why do you even exist? Really in a pill, like 1 sentence, 2 sentences for the mission, for the vision, for overall statement, something that gives a nice introduction to the rest of the document so everybody can get as quickly as possible onto the same page. Next, we have the tone of voice, and we all know tone of voice is usually a part of brand guidelines, but double check yours. Tone of voice. How do you want to sound? Do you want to sound deliberate, powerful, vibrant, calming? If your brand could talk, what would they sound like? What's the tone of voice? And it's quite important to also write down so-called clipping points. And by clipping point, I mean that kind of border, that line in the sand, which you don't want to cross. For example, if you decide to be deliberate, when's the point when you start to sound bold and a bit bossy? You know, it's that kind of distinguishment that you want to make before you actually cross the line and go far into the field. Again, all those do's and don'ts, all those limits, borders, bounds that you have to work within with tone of voice. The better defined it is, the better copy will be, and the more you will engage with the target audience, the reader that will eventually visit your website. It's also important to touch a bit upon audience. I know you guys probably did your ideal customer profile. I know you probably did some research. That's great, that's perfect, but it's also important to include that in the brand guidelines so that the picture is a bit more comprehensive. You know, their background, what drives them, what they like, what they sound like, what puts them off, just basic important information so that when someone writes a copy for you based off that brand guideline, they know who they are talking to roughly on a high level. Brand elements. And I know when people talk about brand, they often associate brand with logo, and that's correct. It's absolutely fine because logo is part of the branding. However, there's more to it. Now, brand elements are full logo, yes, so probably the little, icon, the graphics to the left of the word mark, that's great, that's full logo, but also ident itself. This little graphic is called ident, and you will want this to be a standalone position in your brand guideline. And also you will want to make sure there's some kind of simplified version of the logo. We can call it icon. Why not? So it would be literally just for an application icon, fav icon in the browser title of the tab, maybe somewhere in the footer where the spacing is at premium. That's what the icon is all about. One other thing to keep in mind is those logos, those graphics will need to work in gray, black and white. That is because sometimes you would want to put it on color heavy background or something bright that just wouldn't work with the full-blown colorful version of your logo. Clear guidelines as to when to use which type of the logo is extremely important so people don't make mistakes. Also, you will want to make sure that there is an indication of some sorts what kind of spacing you have to keep around the logo wherever it sits. So basically, where I'm going with this, again, list of do's and list of don'ts, and you will be golden. Typography or typefaces, they definitely important. They're probably one of the most important things because that is a component from your branding that the people will stare at the most when reading your copy, reading your business cards, reading your emails, newsletters, all sorts of things. That's where they meet the typeface that you would use for your brand. So it's extremely important to define it. It really helps if your document, brand document, shows use case in a sentence of certain fonts, certain font sizes, particular examples, just to give us a taste of how the font should be used so it sticks to the rules. One thing to keep in mind when choosing a typeface, and that is for your brand agency to think about, is that those font files should be web ready. Not all fonts are made for web, and also keep in mind that should you ever want to translate your content, what then? Web-ready fonts, they usually come with all the characters, from all the languages around the world, whereas if you go for a font for print, they're usually for a single purpose. Most likely they accommodate English alphabet and that's it. So think about future-proofness of it as well. Colors, hell yeah. So colors are absolute must in brand guidelines, and you will at least want to have primary colors just for your brand. I don't know, something probably bright, or not bright, but whatever is the main primary color for your brand, could be derived from the logo or somewhere else. You will want that defined. Also, you want accent colors for highlights, for decorative purposes, for those actually accents is in the name, so you will want that. And also neutrals, so these are shades of white, gray, black, something in there with maybe tint of blue, tint of red, depending on your primary color palette. Those neutrals are great for backgrounds, for distinguishment between background of the website and the section. I don't know, neutrals will always find their way onto the website, onto your publications, so make sure you have those three in brand guidelines, please. Again, it wouldn't be complete if your brand guideline didn't include examples, how to use those colors, when to use them. We've seen brand guidelines which explain that particular colors are associated with particular product or solution and they should only be used for that. So let's say there is blue and it goes for product X. So then your designer, whoever works with your brand overall, will know to not use that blue until they talk about product name X. That's important. So again, just use guidelines, some kind of examples, some kind of do's and don'ts. They go the long way. Something we really appreciate is if the document includes images. Just examples of images. Naturally, we don't want all of them. We're fine with finding images more suitable depending on the scenario, but just again, a guide how images should look like, what kind of vibe they should give out, more clean, more moody, more bright, more dark, more scientific, more, I don't know, informal. It really depends on the brand that you're going for, but selection of images, this kind of mosaic gallery, it helps. It really helps to just understand how you want to come across when designing a website. A good point to mention is also a case when you try to overlay logo on top of the image. What color that logo should be? Monochromatic, full color, maybe image should be grayed out. Like, how does logo or any kind of illustration, icon, whatever, work on top of that image? How should it behave? And yes, you can leave that out, but then I'm not sure if that's the effect you want to go for. So if brand guidelines bring everyone's expectation onto the same page, then all the better. There is more, but those things that I'm going to mention now are rather optional. However, I highly recommend including them too, for the sake of efficiency, for the sake of collaboration, and just making progress as soon as possible. So first thing that comes to mind is illustrations. When it comes to complex illustrations or any kind of decorative illustrations, could be background, patterns, mascot even, anything you guys would like to have on your website or in other kind of marketing collateral, this should be defined here. You could also ask your brand designer to include examples of presentations, Word document templates, business card templates, any sorts of prints, really, just to guide you a bit how it all should come together. My favorite part of the brand guideline that we worked with lately is at the very bottom. They included about 10 pages of examples of use cases of such brand, like those applications of the brand guidelines that have been mentioned on, I don't know, previous 40-50 pages of the PDF, such as, for example, how to create FAQ section, how to create a user success story, what's the 3-line website intro, at least just how it should sound like, not necessarily is the one to go for, but just the wording of it. How to explain how your product or service works, how to explain product, customer benefits, brand values. They were all there to spark an idea in our heads when we built that design system, when we try to come up with the way to lay out copy on the website for the best user experience. These are fantastic because we at least know that whatever we come up with, it's in line with your business expectations, your team expectations, and it just eliminates that back and forth down the line that's absolutely necessary and wastes everyone's time. So in other words, if I was to sum up this entire video, the more you define, the more granular your brand guidelines is, the better for everyone. So tell me, what's your brand guideline like? And you can also tell me how you could improve it based on this video. Maybe there's something else that you think is essential, but I didn't mention it. Do let me know in the comments. But for now, thanks so much for watching. I'll talk to you later. Bye bye.